Hey Wargamers, today we're going to talk about the Retaliation Cadre Detachment in the new Tau Codex and how it is surprisingly complex. Now, really, in essence, this detachment is meant to be your battlesuit heavy list. It is meant to enable you to bring the battlesuit heavy list of your dreams, whether that's a Farsight bomb, a Riptide wing, whatever it is. This is meant to promote that type of gameplay, but it's more nuanced than that. It is surprisingly challenging to actually use effectively. It is not a push button to win detachment. It requires nuance. It requires KG generalship, and a lot of things actually go into this list aside from just spamming crisis suits and riptides. So let's take a look at the detachment as a whole, starting with its detachment rule. Bonded Heroes is one of the few previews that we actually got from the new Tau Codex prior to its release. Basically, it gives battle suits improved shooting within 12 inches or 6 inches. So within 12 inches, you get +1 strength, and within 6 inches, you get +1 AP. This is a notably better version of the old philosophy of war Monka detachment rule. So we're getting +1 strength, +1 AP when we're really up nice and close just with our battle suits, and it's the whole game. So it's not just turns 1, 2, or 3, or 3, 4, and 5. The whole game you get this benefit. And notably, because battle suits can shoot in combat, this applies to your combat shooting as well. So if you're in there in melee and still shooting, you get +1 strength, +1 AP, which is probably going to be good because you're going to want it in that situation. The biggest benefit from this rule, of course, is low strength, low AP, or things firing against really high durability, right? So things like flamers go to strength 5, AP -1 if they're within 6 inches. That's not a big stretch for a flamer, right? Flamer has range 12, going down to 6. You're going to be in a good spot to be able to get this benefit. Burst cannons, strength 6 -1 AP if you're within 6. Also a really solid profile, right? We're getting lots of shots here. Strength 6 is going to be, wounding toughness 3 on 2s. AP -1 is really a sweet spot. -1, -2 is where you get a lot of bang for your buck. And so, yeah, strength 6 -1, volume of fire on a burst cannon, that's great. Heavy burst cannon on a riptide goes to strength 7, AP -2. Like, that's a really respectable profile. In volume. Missiles, so like our missile pods or our high yield missile pods on broadsides, strength 8, AP -2, 2 damage. Like, that's again a really solid profile there when you're within 6 inches. Cyclic ion blasters, or ion accelerators, or any of the ion weapons really go from strength 8 to 9, depending on the profile that you're using. AP -2 to -4. Again, really solid stats there. And so you can see very clearly how getting this benefit on some of these, strength 4, 5, 7 profiles really makes a difference and can push these relatively low power, high quantity shots to be both quantity and quality. When you're getting into strength 8, strength 9, you're able to wound, toughness 4 on 2s. You're able to punch up and do a lot of damage to vehicles as well, except for the really heavy stuff. So you're doing a lot of damage here, and you have a fair amount of play in terms of what your different targets are going to be and how much damage you're going to be able to do for them. So getting up close with bonded heroes with your battle suits pays dividends for sure. You still get a benefit for higher strength, higher AP weapons. So like plasma goes to strength 9, AP -4. Going from strength 8 to strength 9 isn't necessarily that big of deal for a lot of profiles. But it does give you a little bit of a leg up against some vehicles. Going from AP3 to AP4, a lot of times if AP3 is going to be good enough, or completely irrelevant if they have invulnerable save, right? Fusion going from strength 10, AP -5, again, that helps you punch up on some vehicles, but one of the bigger benefits here is that you're wounding toughness 5 on 2s now. So a lot of those thicker infantry units you're able to delete much more easily. AP -5, basically nobody's going to get an armor save from that. even in cover or anything like that. So that's useful, but pretty redundant in a lot of cases. Rail, like heavy rail rifle, going to strength 13, AP minus 5. You're going to have some benefits here in some cases, but it really is diminished when we compare the benefit to a heavy rail rifle versus the benefit to a missile pod, right? Missile pod proportionally gets way more out of this. Flamers, burst cannons get way more out of this than a heavy rail rifle do. And so there's certainly a benefit to getting up close. I know I've said that already a couple times, but it's not an equal benefit across the board. There's some nuance to this. You don't have to push your heavy rail rifle broadside up the board as much as you want to push your crisis suits with flamers or your stealth suits up the board. You're just not getting the same benefit. So there is some nuance to this. There's a gradient of benefit that you're going to get, but in general, again, the idea is that you're going to want to be aggressive. All right, so let's move on and look at the enhancements here. Of course, like every detachment, Cadre gets 4. 3 of them are basically auto includes. The first one here, Pure Tet Engram Neurochip, is not one of those 3. It basically allows you to double dip on stratagems, which on itself is good, right? That's a nice perk to be able to use a stratagem in duplicate. But the thing is that per the data slate and commentaries that we've had, this type of augmentation to your stratagems really only works against battle tactics. So that's not a great fit for this detachment. It seems pretty clear that this rule was written before they had even thought about making that adjustment to the game. So this detachment only has one battle tactic, and so you can only use Pure Tet Engram Neurochip for that one battle tactic, which is very situational. So it really doesn't have a lot of value here. Hopefully at some point in the future, Games Workshop either addresses this in some way by adjusting the Pure Tet Engram Neurochip to provide you duplicate usage of specific stratagems, which is a kind of a loophole in the commentary, or an exception to the commentary. Otherwise, it's essentially useless right now, and you still have to pay for it. So it's just really not a competitive choice, especially considering the value and the tendies you can get from these other enhancements. So one of them is the Starflare Ignition System. It basically allows you to jump back into reserves if the bearer and its unit is outside of engagement range at the end of your enemy turn. So that's really advantageous because you can have a unit that's aggressive on the board, and if they need to get somewhere else so that you can get that bonded heroes benefit, you can drop just ambiently, you can drop in at 9 inches, so you're getting that initial +1 strength at least, and there's some ways to augment that as well. But basically, you can jump up into reserves at the end of your enemy turn if you're not in close combat, and then deep strike the next turn again, right? So you can just constantly jump up and down, up and down, up and down, and get into positions to maximize your firepower for that one unit, which is really a force multiplier there. So the Starflare Ignition System, something that you're really going to want. It does have potentially a nice play with an Enforcer battlesuit, for example, because if you're just jumping up and down, having the benefits from the Codex aren't necessarily as necessary. And so putting it on an Enforcer that you're going to get the durability perks for might make a little bit more sense. The internal grenade racks is an additional enhancement that has some nice mortal wound abilities. Basically, whenever you move over or perform a normal move over an enemy unit, you get to roll 6 dice. Doesn't matter if it's a 1 model unit or a 20 model unit, you roll 6 dice. 4 ups give you a mortal wound, and that is just some nice damage that you really can do, particularly if you're putting this on something like a Codex that has a lot of zippy zappy movement. You have some good flexibility here to do some mortal wounds on some big monsters. Like if you think about Catan or something like that, you're able to plink away at these things pretty effectively. If you're rolling six dice on 4s, you're expecting 3. And then there are some movement strats, the Torchstar Gambit, that allows you to move again. basically jump, shoot, jump. So that gives you access to another set of 6. So on average, you're going to be doing 6 mortal wounds just from movement. And against those high toughness models, those 6 wounds can make a big difference, right? Like that's 6 wounds that you don't have to do with your shooting, and that adds up. So internal grenade racks on something that actually is going to be able to move around and engage with these bigger models is going to be pretty useful. Even against horde units, you're getting 6 mortal wounds here. That's going to rip through a lot of units, right? It's not just the big guys that's going to be useful for. That's pretty universally beneficial. So yeah, the big problem with that, of course, is that you have to get close, but that's part of what this detachment is meant to do, right? So you get close, you move over them, you get your perks from bonded heroes, so you lay into them with your shooting, but then you're also doing 3 to 6 mortal wounds based on what you're doing with stratagems, and that can delete a lot of units pretty quickly. Prototype weapon system. This is the final enhancement. Basically, you put it on a commander. He can select either sustained hits or lethal hits each time he shoots, and you're pretty much always going to be picking sustained hits. That's just probably going to be the better bang for your buck, unless you really need to mitigate some high toughness or something like that. But sustained hits are probably going to be mostly what you pick on this. And that can help commanders do a lot more heavy lifting, especially if you're giving them something like fusion blasters. Having sustained hits can take a commander that has, 4 fusion blasters, let's say, give them, 5 or 6 hits potentially. So, you're getting some nice multiplication of power here, and it's helping them be even more impactful on the battlefield. So it's a relatively cheap upgrade. You might as well pick it. But these last 3, the Starflare, the internal grenade packs, and the prototype weapon system, are all basically good to go. Like, you're going to want to pick them up as able. I think probably the priorities is going to be on things like Starflare and grenade racks, but prototype weapon system also, like I said, can help commanders do more heavy lifting. It's less of a force multiplier across the board, like especially a Starflare ignition system is, but it does offer something useful, at least. Pure Tight Engram Neurochip simply doesn't, right? So it's not worth your investment, given the way the game works right now at the release of the Codex. All right, let's start talking about stratagems then. So, of course, we have 6 stratagems. 2 of them are 2 CP, the rest are 1 CP. The first one here, Failsafe Detonator, is one of our 2 CP stratagems. It's Epic Deed stratagem. Again, not a battle tactic, so we can't use Pure Tight Engram Neurochip or Farsight's ability on it. Basically allows you to choose the outcome of Deadly Demise if the unit has Deadly Demise, or if they don't have Deadly Demise, you get a slightly different version of Deadly Demise. Instead of just rolling 1 dice and applying mortal wounds to nearby units, you roll a d6 for every unit within 6 inches, and on a 4-up they suffer d3 mortal wounds. So it's a little bit more granular, but essentially the same thing. It's really expensive for what you get, right? You're gonna do a couple mortal wounds here, maybe, depending on how many units are close by, and that's rough, right? Like 2 CP for that. I think grenade racks are a much better investment for mortal wounds. Failsafe Detonator, 2 CP for 1 turn for 1 mile to blow up is kind of a lot. It could be useful in a pinch, right? If you have to do like 1 mortal wound to a unit to taking control of an objective, or to wipe it out and prevent it from regenning or something like that. There are reasons why you might consider this. Keep it in your back pocket. Don't forget about it. But it's not one of your go-tos. It's really expensive for what you get. Stimm Injectors is a 1 CP war gear stratagem. Again, not a battle tactic. So you can't use Pure Tight Engram Neurochip or Farsight on it. Stimm Injectors give you 6 up Feel No Pain on a battlesuit unit. That itself, very good, right? It used to be better, right, when you could have these big blocks of crisis suits with lots of wounds where you really want to mitigate even just a couple wounds, you would get a lot of mileage out of that because of the way that crisis wounds kind of block across damage. If you take a wound off using Feel No Pain, then suddenly you can absorb a much greater number of shots because crisis suits are a multi-model unit with now 5 wounds maximum. It used to be 6 wounds. You used to be able to absorb a lot more damage just by taking a few damage here and there using Stimm injectors. Now it's still good, right? You're still giving a unit Feel No Pain, which is always useful, but it's not as useful as it used to be. You're basically going to be using this on your broadsides, on your riptides, on your Forge World suits if you're bringing those, your Ghost Keel. Giving them Feel No Pain is going to give you a little bit more mileage here because they're going to be the things where you really want to mitigate those high damage shots. So you're going to get more utility out of this. You're going to want to be using this relatively often, but you're still only going to be limited to 1 unit per turn because of per turn because it's not a battle tactic. So useful, but not insanely useful as it used to be. Moving on to the Shorn Blade. This is probably one of the saddest stratagems in the Codex. It is very good. It's fantastic. But the fact that it is, again, a strategic ploy means we're limited to just 1 per turn, and it costs a lot. So it's one of those things that really could make this list function exceptionally well, maybe too well, and that's a discussion for another day. But this is the thing that you want to do, and they make it really hard to do. So a Shorn Blade allows you to deep strike 3 inches away from a target. That is, in general, amazing. It gives you really quick access to bonded heroes, right? You can deep strike in, get your +1 strength, get your +1 AP, and unload, right? This is the stratagem that would make a Farsight bomb happen. And that's why it's called the Shorn Blade too, right? It's named after Farsight. It also makes screening drops much harder, right? If you can drop in within 3, suddenly your opponent has to be much more clustered in order to avoid getting crisis suits right in the middle of their deployment. It's very hard to screen this out. And now that crisis suits are 3-man units instead of potentially 6-man units, you're having a smaller unit that can get into kind of these nooks and crannies of your opponent's deployment and unload shots. So this is exceptionally good. This is a very good stratagem. It's just hard to use because of the way that the rules have been constructed around it. It synergizes really well with Starflare too, right? If you have the CP to be able to drop down, shoot something off the board and then jump back up the next turn and then do it again and again and again, that is really, really useful. But you need the CP, and that can be challenging to do, right? You need to have at least 2 CP every turn. So you're going to be discarding, a battle tactic, or maybe using a ethereal. If you bring ethereal, you can't bring Farsight. Again, another reason why maybe Farsight doesn't actually fit into the Rat Cadre very well is because you'd want the benefits of an ethereal to help keep your CP engine going, so you can use this more often, especially if you're going for that Starflare ignition tactic. So a very good stratagem, one that you're going to want to use as much as you can, but you're just not going to be able to use it as much as you would like. Arrokan Protocol, 1 CP battle tactic. This is our only battle tactic in the detachment, so it's the only one that you can double dip with using Pure Tide Engram Neurochip or Farsight. You could get this. You could get this multiple times. It's pretty situational, but it does offer some nice benefits, right? So it gives you sustained hits 1 on targets that have 6 or more models, sustained hits 2 on targets that have 11 or more models. Sustained hits 2 in this detachment is amazing, right? We have an issue generally with battlesuits that their volume of fire often, with some exceptions, isn't the highest, and so having sustained hits 2 takes these really powerful weapons and helps amplify their volume of fire, right? You go to a place where you're getting really high quantity and quality of shots again, and so sustained hits 2 on these big units means a lot. And so it can help you deal with some of these volume of fire challenges that the list might ambiently run into. It's more useful in a horde heavy meta, and that's not where we're at right now. Maybe in sometime that will happen, or if you're going up against a particular matchup, like especially if you're like facing Necron Immortal spam or something like that. Having sustained hits 2 on a big block of infantry can really make a difference. And so this does have utility. It is something that you'll want to consider duplicating if you can, but it's hard to know in like a tournament setting whether or not this is going to be something you should build your list around or something you should try to prioritize, whereas these other stratagems, other tactics are going to be more potentially more generally useful and something that you can kind of predict the utility of a little bit more. So Arrokan protocol, super matchup dependent, but nonetheless, when it does have a usefulness, it can be a pretty useful thing. All right, and then our last 2 stratagems. The Torchstar Gambit is a 1 CP strategic ploy. This is probably one of your auto CP expenditures. You're going to want to use this as much as possible, and again, that pulls down your CP economy a little bit. Basically allows you to perform a normal move after shooting. The fact that you can declare it at any time after shooting is a huge bonus. Previous versions of this used to be that you'd have to declare it when you shot or before you shot. Now you can go through your whole shooting phase, do all your shooting, know what's left on the board, and then make a decision about who's going to move after that. And that is a potentially subtle change in how we think about using this, but one that has really massive implications for how effectively we can use this. So being able to use this anytime after shooting, still within your shooting phase, but anytime after a unit has shot, is really useful and provides a lot of flexibility. You can use this to engage, get closer to get your bonded heroes benefit, engage to be within range if you need to. You use it to fall back, hide behind terrain. Use it to grab objectives, right? Mobility is, something that we sing praises of all the time, but on the tabletop can be easy to forget or how massively important it is, right? And so having the flexibility because of the Torchstar Gambit and its predecessors is always something that we look for, and the fact that it's 1 CP is great. So having a 1 CP version for this is something that you're going to want to use all the time. Works really well with grenade racks, right? Because you can move up to a unit, move over it even, use your grenade racks to do some mortal wounds, shoot at it. Let's say it still has a couple wounds left, move back over it, have the grenade racks do some more mortal wounds, and what do you know, the thing's gone. So you get to do a lot of jump, shoot, jump with some grenades in there, and that's awesome. You're going to want to use this a lot. Grav-Inhibitor field is a 1 CP strategic ploy. Basically induces a battle shock test for a charging unit that's charging a battlesuit. And yeah, having to give them a battle shock is potentially useful depending on their condition, but basically, yeah, giving them a battle shock could remove their OC value, prevent them from getting access to strats. Like, those things are good in helping you either control an objective or just stay alive. So there is utility there. they take mortal wounds on 6s for each model in the unit with no cap. So if you had like a really big unit, you could probably do a nice a nice number of mortal wounds. But in general, that's pretty lackluster, right? That's not going to make a big difference. So it's not super reliable, but it could provide some utility in certain, in kind of niche situations. So again, don't forget about it, but it's not something that you're probably going to base your strategy around. So overall, most of these are pretty situational, right? We look at Grav-Inhibitor drones, we look at Arrokan protocol, we look at failsafe detonator. Those are all pretty situational things. Stimm injectors, shortened blade, and Torchstar Gambit are less so. Certainly, shortened blade is something that you would like to use, but maybe aren't going to be able to. Torchstar Gambit is something that you almost always will be able to use for some benefit. So Torchstar Gambit is kind of like your go-to choice here, and like, hey, I have some CP. What am I going to do with it? You can do the Torchstar Gambit. Of course, you'll want to think ahead a little bit and conserve CP if you need to, but Torchstar Gambit is almost always going to be a good use of CP. All right, let's talk about what units excel in Retaliation Cadre. So this detachment is about battlesuits, right? Like, we know that it's about battlesuits. That's what the rule is. But battlesuits should not be the entire list, right? Battlesuits are the entree. They are what you are focusing on, but they need an appetizer. They need a dessert. They need, the hors d'oeuvres to come alongside to really make it a meal, to really make it a functioning list. And so keep that in mind here, right? That we're getting a lot of benefits from battlesuits. Battlesuits are amazing. That's why we bring this list if we are. It's because we love battlesuits and we want to play battlesuit heavy list. But battlesuits can't do everything. One of the battlesuits that you will want to bring for sure, though, are stealth suits, right? Stealth suits benefit a lot from bonded heroes. Having your burst cannons get +1 strength, potentially +1 AP, makes them much more effective. So they're actually, doing some damage with their burst cannons here. The fact that they are able to give you reroll 1s to wound and to hit when they are your observer unit is really good for battlesuits, given that a lot of those higher strength things are going to have, be wounding on 3s, let's say, right? Or maybe even 2s. And so rerolling 1s to wound makes a big difference, right? That's potentially all or half of your missed wounds. And so you're getting a lot of benefit out of that. Plus, being able to reroll 1s to hit, always good, right? So you're getting a lot of benefit out of these as an observer unit too. They have a homing beacon, which gives you free rapid ingress, right? So you can use rapid ingress. You can get your units on the tabletop in a position where they can, in the next turn, move to actually get in range for bonded heroes. So you're doing a lot here with rapid ingress to potentially plan ahead or hopefully plan ahead and get your units into position where they can do the most damage. So homing beacons, their observer benefits, plus the benefits that they get themselves just from bonded heroes, all these things make stealth suits really good. They're really good outside of Rec Cadre as well, but they're even better in Rec Cadre too. So that's stealth suits. You're going to bring stealth suits. Kroot, right? Kroot also in Rec Cadre, I think. And the reason for this is because a lot of what you're doing with Retaliation Cadre is going to be moving forward, right? You're going to want to get close. You're going to be, zipping around the battlefield. You're not necessarily going to want to sit on an objective and sit on an objective. You're not going to want to camp on an objective really with most of your units. Maybe your Riptides, maybe your Broadsides, you'll be able to do that with. But having Kroot, which can, for one thing, take up board space. That's something that battlesuits don't do very well, is take up board space. They don't do very good at screening. They don't do very good at board control. And so having just a number of models on the tabletop from Kroot is useful on its own. But the fact that they have sticky objectives now means that they can, grab an objective, move somewhere else, stay alive, or, screen out units, or grab another objective, or whatever, right? Like, you get a lot of benefits from this. The fact that they have sticky objectives allows you to put the rest of your army where you want it to be. And so that's a huge benefit, especially if we think about maybe bringing not just crew carnivores, but lone spears too. Lone spears can do some nice work in terms of being lone operatives, boosting the efficacy of recruit if they do want to get into close combat or shooting. And so lone spears plus carnivores can do a lot. And they can kind of hold the board while your battle suits are doing the heavy lifting. Darkstrider. Darkstrider is just good in general, but you might want to consider bringing him either independently or in a unit of Pathfinders because he blocks out deep strikers, right? You can't deep strike next to him, and that's a really powerful tool, especially when your list probably depends a lot on deep striking. So deep striking is for you, not for your opponent. You can position him in a way to prevent your Riptides, your crisis units, whatever it is, right? Whatever unit you want to protect, you can keep them from getting the tables turned on them, right? You can prevent them from getting deep struck next to and wiped off the board by their friendly neighborhood Darkstrider. So there's a lot of value there. And then, of course, basically every other battle suit is something that you're going to want to consider, right? Crisis suits, Riptides, Broadsides, all of these are going to do a lot of heavy lifting. Broadsides, like I said, in general, not going to get the biggest benefit out of this because they have a hard time moving, especially. But if you think about broadsides with missile pods, they're going to get some nice perks from bonded heroes if you get them in close. That's probably more of a defensive thing than anything, right? You're not going to be running your broadsides up the board in Ret Cadre, but you can have them sitting on the back like, hey, if you get close to me, it's not going to be great for you. So so you can kind of think about it that way too, is it's not an aggressive perk, it's a defensive perk. Arvarnas even look decent with bonded heroes perks. They go to having a 2d6 plus 4 hits or shots, strength 9, minus 2 AP, 2 damage. That's decent, right? That's not bad. On average, 11 strength 9, minus 2 AP, 2 damage shots. Like that's decent. The thing is, of course, the pricing. Arvarna, Yvara, both of those being Forge World units are pretty static when it comes time to being updated. So, that's a major liability here. And oftentimes there's going to be a more efficient choice to get the same output. So that's too bad. Ghost Keel. Ghost Keels don't really want to get close, right? And so maybe the Bonded Heroes benefit is, again, more of a defensive thing for them, which is kind of sneaky, right? Like basically ghost kills don't want to get this close, and so you're not going to be aggressive with them necessarily, but ghost kills are still great, right? Ghost kills are really good units. But in Ret Cadre, you have the benefit of saying, okay, hey, opponent, you're going to want to get close to my ghost kill because you can't shoot it otherwise, but if you do, it's going to hurt more than you might think. So again, that defensive perk of helping you deal with problems as they present themselves for ghost kills and broadsides compared to the more offensive-minded benefits for crisis suits, riptides, and the like. Yvaras can get the Bonded Heroes benefit pretty much easier than most other suits, except for deep strike and crisis suits, because they're fast, right? And they have nice invuln save, and they have flamers and all sorts of stuff. So, you get your 10 plasma flamer hits with Yvara now, and that profile gets better, right? So Yvara's, again, it's kind of the same thing as their Varna, that a lot of times you're probably looking at something that is going to be, benefited by Bonded Heroes, benefited by this detachment, but if you compare it points for points to another option, you're probably going to get a lot of the same benefit, if not more benefit, from going a different route, unfortunately. But you can't beat the cool factor, though, right? Rule of cool is a rule. Finally, let's talk about some tactical considerations. There's tons of opportunities for combos in Ret Cadre. Basically, the Starflare Ignition system, being able to drop in and out of Deep Strike on Sunforge suits with Fusion Blasters or Fire Knife suits with Missile Pods, can really really do a lot of damage. Sunforge, of course, getting them within Melta range is huge. Fire Knife suits with Missile Pods bumps those Missile Pods to Strength 8 -2 AP, and you get a fair number of shots there. So they can really do, a nice amount of damage, especially if you're dropping in next to a unit at full strength. So Fire Knives with Missile Pods, dropping in and out with Starflare Ignition is something to think about. Grenade racks with Torchstar Gambit, we already talked about this, but basically, jump, shoot, jump, and drop grenades while you do so. Nice bit of amount of wounds there. And you can basically be really aggressive and use these combos to focus on one part of the board and overwhelm it with firepower. One of the shortcomings or challenges with this detachment, though, is that it's vulnerable to a lot of number limitations. Right, battle suits, you generally don't have a ton of them. Right, we're talking about units of 3, units of 4 at the most, 6, I guess, with stealth suits, but not a lot of models on the board in any one unit, and generally not putting out an insane number of shots. And so you have some limitations inherent in that. Battle suits, given that they are high quality shots, they're going to want to be guided, right? You want to make sure that those high quality shots are landing, but you don't have a ton of observers ambiently in the list, right? It's not like with Monka where you have your breachers and a devilfish, and the devilfish is obviously going to be an observer, right? And so you don't have these kind of native pairings that occur. You don't have these built-in observers, and so you have to be more selective in what's being observed, or what's an observer, what's being a guided unit, that sort of thing. One of the ways you can get around this, of course, is bringing things that aren't battle suits, but also bringing Shadow Sun can help alleviate that because of her aura to reroll ones on hit. The loss of cyclic ion blasters on crisis suits makes this even more acute, because with cyclic ion blasters on crisis suits, you used to have a unit that could fill multiple roles at once, right? Cyclic ion blasters were good against everything. Now that's not the case, right? And so there's much more specialization in your units, and so even though you may have a reasonable number of units, they may be mismatched to your opponent, right? And so we have to look outside battle suits to build a more generalist list. We have to think more nuanced about this than just all battle suits all the time, because battle suits have inherent limitations, and using the Codex as a whole, not just battle suits, is going to provide you with some more generalization, some more flexibility in that. And so overall, there's a need to be aggressive in order to get your Bonded Heroes benefits and really maximize the damage that you're doing with your suits, but you also need to be cautious. Bonded Heroes means that you want to get close, but you don't have to get close, right? Crisis suits, still good. Riptides, still good. Broadsides, still good. They're all still good as they are, but they're even better when they get their Bonded Heroes benefit. And so, of course, you want to do that, but don't get tunnel vision. Don't basically throw everything away just to get the Bonded Heroes benefit, because you're going to be putting yourself in a bad situation. Crisis suits don't have the durability to face tank a bunch of shooting. You got to be cagey. You got to be selective in how you're doing this, and you don't have the pressure of a detachment roll that is limited to a certain number of turns. Right? You get this the whole game. So take your time as you can in order to play the game that you need to play, right? You don't have to put everything up in your opponent's face on turn 1. You're going to put yourself probably in a bad position if you do so, and so a more tactical view of what you need to do and how to maximize your damage while reducing your losses is going to be something to keep in mind. It is not a push button to win list, and I don't think I'm saying anything novel by suggesting that either, right? And so if that's true, it may require a little bit more experienced generalship, both in terms of list construction, but also in gameplay in order to succeed, right? We have to think more holistically about this, and realize that the Retaliation Cadre Detachment is one that provides us some really powerful tools, but those tools are not the entirety of the picture, right? Again, they may be the entree, they may be the main course, but we need those hors d'oeuvres, those desserts. We need a salad. We need a side salad, guys, in order to make this a real high-functioning list. At least that's my take on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I totally off base here? Is it really just that simple as all Riptides all the time? Or is there more going on here? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching and happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you stuck around to this point in the video, maybe you want to join our Discord community as well. There's a link in the description below. Special thanks to all my supporters over on Patreon, but especially the folks that you see on your screen now. If you want to help make more invasive wargaming videos, consider joining our community over there as well.